All right, ladies and gentlemen, and in-betweeners, on this week's On the Rocks Live from Home edition, we welcome What We Do in Shadows and the magician's Harvey Guillen, here to answer your fan questions along with my guest co-host, AV Club Editor-in-Chief, Patrick Gomez, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. So raise a glass and let the drinks begin.
Thank you for being
Boulevard.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Lord have mercy, buttons and bows and pantyhose. This is On the Rocks podcast, the place where we're too glam to give a damn. Have you heard about the coin shortage? America literally doesn't have any common sense. Wah, wah. Okay, today's show is presented by the Funky Clothing Company. Retro pattern, slim fit shirts, every kind of shirts you want, caps, and the funkiest socks you've ever seen. Funk things up a little bit and look good during quarantine. Go to thefunkyco.com. The show is brought to you by Straw Hut Media. You can watch and or listen to our over 200 episodes on OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Hello to our listeners around the nation on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Pandora, Gay Binge TV, on the Facebook pages of Now Trending, GED Magazine, I Love Gay LGBT, and of course, our very own On the Rocks Radio Show Facebook. We are also streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire at out@.tv, on HereTV.com, and on YouTube's PlanetOut. Add and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast player. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, at On the Rocks on Air. Send me an email. Book me for a wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. Digitally, I will host it. Send me an email, info@ontherocksradioshow.com. Send us your question, comments, and your nudes. Check out the new issue of MetroSource magazine, the national LGBT magazine. This month, my interviews with Michelle Visage, Bob the Drag Queen, and Kaylin Allen from The Ellen Show on newsstands at metrosource.com. Okay, let me welcome my guest co-host here to keep me on track. Before joining AV Club as editor-in-chief, Patrick Gomez served as senior editor at the Entertainment Weekly and senior writer at People magazine, and is Texas native and University of Southern California graduate, now resides in LA. Thank you, Jesus, and is a member of the Television Critics Association and Critics' Choice Association. He has appeared on Today, Good Morning America, Access Hollywood, Entertainment Tonight, E! News, CNN, HLN, and more. Please welcome Patrick Gomez.
Oh my goodness, when you hear that all listed out, I'm sorry we made you say all that.
Oh my God, you're so chic. You're just so famous. I don't know about that quarantine haircut though. Like, I just got to be honest with you.
I mean, I did do it myself, so I will take all of the credit and all of the blame. I had to go get my driver's license photo today.
Oh, you did? Did they let you in the DMV?
Yeah, so you have to have you can show up, but you have to stand in a separate line. And actually I was surprised everyone was in masks. Everyone, I mean, you had the general DMV, like people upset that they have to wait, but It was very organized relatively. And once you were inside, there's only like 10 or 15 other people inside. And it was relatively fine, but yeah, I had to take my new driver's license photo with this Corona cut.
So chic, just so chic. Okay, I want to talk candidly. You and I are friends. I want to talk about your move.
Oh, are we?
Are we? It depends. It depends how much we've had to drink. I want to talk candidly about the move from People magazine to Entertainment Weekly, and now to AV Club. And for those that don't know, AV Club is your source for everything pop culture. But that was a very bold career move to leave this huge national magazine that's been around forever for this new endeavor. What kind of inspired that move? And were you scared?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think taking any sort of big career move is a little scary. You are such an inspiration, and I don't say that as a joke. Like, you yourself made a big career change and move, and kind of created your own path. And that's kind of what this opportunity looked like for me. I was at People and Entertainment Weekly, which were the same parent company. I went through many iterations of companies over there. When I started, we were Time Warner, then we were Time Inc., then we were Meredith, which is what we were when we left. And all in all, I was there for pretty much a decade. And I grew up there, you know, and so it was hard to leave the people that I had grown up around. And I had like my work wife, who I, you know, is still super close with me, and it was a hard call to make, but at the same time, you know, it was just becoming an editor-in-chief of a publication as respected and renowned as the AV Club was just something I couldn't pass up. And while I miss everyone that I worked with at Entertainment Weekly and at People, you know, getting to help call the shots and kind of create our voice as a brand is something that's so exciting to me. And you mentioned it's for all kinds of pop culture, mainly both at People and Entertainment Weekly. I was mainly talking about TV, which is my true passion. And if I had to choose one form of pop culture, that's what I want. But here I get to deal with film and music and podcasts like this, and books and comics, all of it. And so to be able to just continue to grow and really talk about everything that interests me, not just TV, has been super interesting. That being said, today was a great day for TV.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's just dive in. What is happening? What are some of the biggest things in entertainment and pop culture that are happening during COVID? And of course, today, Reese Witherspoon almost jumped out the window today. We had the Emmy nominations. What is going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to we can talk about the Emmys in just a second, but in terms of quarantine in general, you know, obviously there's not a lot of going on in the film space. But we're lucky, you know, we are gonna reach a point at which TV stops coming out as frequently. But for right now, most of the TV that's coming out right now was planned and filmed and done, you know, well before we all had to like be locked up in our homes. So, you know, we're still getting some great television. And also it's a great time to catch up on stuff. I'm currently watching Succession I hadn't watched it yet, and we've watched like
good.
Yeah, we were halfway through season 2 and we started like on Friday. So that's been good. Netflix has been providing some great fun. Yep. If you want like really dumb TV, which I love, Floor is Lava is like the simplest and most dumb show ever. But if you love seeing people just like flop around and trying to make giant leaps and not succeeding, it's a show for you.
Well, especially since West Hollywood's closed, I can't see people trying to make, you know, leaps and then flopping around.
Yes, very true. I've seen people try to lunge for a man or woman and miss.
Okay, let's talk about the Emmys. There was some, you know, things that we assume that happened. Of course, Meryl Streep, Laura Dern. But I think one of the biggest shocks is Reese Witherspoon, and maybe you can give me some insight. Did she cancel herself out? The morning show, Big Little Lies, and then the Flaming Housewives show.
Flaming Housewives is your show.
But she was on 3 major shows with 3 amazing performances and not one nomination. What happened?
Yeah, well, and you know, you know, to her testament, she's also an executive producer on all of those shows. So she's helping craft these stories, and it's, you know, so I'm sad that she doesn't get recognized, but at the same time, I do think there's a little bit, like we said, I think she cancels out that she was in 3 major projects, all of which received a lot of nominations. So it's sad to see that she wasn't part of that. That being said, she's doing just fine.
She is doing just fine. And it was great to see Succession because they've only had 1 actor from the show that's been nominated. And then this year, almost the whole cast was nominated because it's truly an ensemble show.
Cousin Greg.
But it's really funny to see how audiences and critics and voters changed loyalty so much. Like Handmaid's Tale, remember there was a year where Handmaid's Tale couldn't get enough nominations. Like they just wanted to add categories to honor it. Modern Family used to sweep everything, and now we're seeing like, oh yeah, that show. Things can change so quickly for a show, for an actor, for what's popular. Do you think it's because we're saturating content too fast that we're just like, okay, next, what else is bigger and better?
Well, you know, I know you're always looking for something that's bigger and better. So
what his name was?
But you know, what really is happening here is a couple things. I think the Emmys and the Golden Globes, all these award shows have always been about the new shiny thing. You know, you're always getting the new starlet, the new project, the new director. Those people are always going to get attention for their first couple projects or first couple seasons. And then, you know, something new and shiny comes along. We all look there. There's that. But I also think that there's been something that was really democratizing about the voting this year, which is because they had, you know, normally if you live in LA or New York, but particularly LA, there is 3 events going on every night from starting in March for people that are like throwing these lavish parties and, star-studded events, trying to get people to vote for their shows and raise awareness about their shows. All of that went away this year. So everyone who's now been stuck at home, either binging, like I just was saying, like binging Succession, or, watching stuff that they wouldn't normally have time to watch, that's provided opportunities for shows to get attention that nobody would have even had the time to think about before.
Well, that's very interesting. And I'm rewatching shows that I thought I loved, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of not that good. And of course, it gives us time to watch amazing shows and binge watch like what we do in the shadows. And so I want to go ahead and bring in our man of the hour representing the Latinos. And hey, the Latinos didn't get a lot of representation in terms of acting this year. So, but it's actors like Harvey that are working on changing that. So let's introduce the man of the hour, Harvey Guillen, GLAAD award-winning actor and producer. Harvey's inventive and creative approach to acting has won the hearts of fans across the globe in the hilarious FX comedy series What We Do in the Shadows that just received an Emmy nomination for Best Comedy today. What We Do in the Shadows premiered its 2nd season on FX on April 15th and is being binge watched over and over and has gained a hit following with fans from all different genres. In addition to What We Do in the Shadows, Guillen recently wrapped production on the upcoming film Werewolves Within, based on the Ubisoft game of the same name. He will act opposite Michael Chernus, Michaela Watkins, Sam Richardson, and my boyfriend Cheyenne Jackson, and many more. Guillen has been seen in a wide array of TV series and films, including Sci-Fi's The Magicians, Nickelodeon's The Thundermans, Apple TV's Little America, MTV's Eye Candy. He also portrayed Elijah in the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Me What to Do episode of the series Raising Hope, for which he received a GLAAD Media Award for his role. And in film, of course, we first saw him on the big screen acting opposite Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn in The Internship and Netflix's mystery thriller Truth or Dare. Watch him in the final season of another favorite show of mine, Room 104 on HBO. And he's also on Quibi's Don't Look Deeper. Oh, and also don't forget to play the video game Guillermo's Stakeout on your phone. It's so fun. Please welcome the man of the hour, Harvey Guillen.
Hi.
Hey,
Wow.
girl.
I
Hey,
feel
girl,
like
hey.
my new publicist or something, because that was I was like, I did that. I was like, oh shit, right. I was like, that's a good resume you got there then.
Bro, your publicist has the easiest job right now. You are so hot. Everything that you're touching is turning to gold. And I'm so excited to chat with you because we are basically the same person. We grew up in OC. Represent! We were both inspired by Annie, the musical. We also... we're both curvy girls. We both did a lot of community theater. We're both Latinos, and we both are on Emmy-nominated shows.
Well, there you go. We're just practically twins.
Great.
We might as well, reenact Sideshow right now and take it on the road.
Do you
And
sing?
I do. I went to school for musical theater, so we can start singing that song right now. I'll Never Leave You.
Oh my God. Well, I probably will end up playing you in the Broadway musical version of What We Do in the Shadows. Like, we know that that's happening.
Harvey said he had a good agent, and
Oh, boom. So, Harvey, What We Do in the Shadows nominated today for Emmy alongside Schitt's Creek and Curb Your Enthusiasm. You shared on social media, which I love your Instagram, by the way, but you shared kind of your excitement. Were you watching the nominations, or did you get the phone call? Like, what exactly happened?
See, I woke up 10 minutes before the nominations. Just weirdly enough, I wasn't planning on it. I didn't have the alarm or anything. And I went to sleep really late last night, and I was just like, I woke up and it was like, 10 minutes before the nominations. And I was like, what's going on? I was like, why am I up? And I was like, and I just had this like urgency to get up. And I remember my really good friend, Johnny, texted me also at that moment. He was like, I'm rooting for you. And I was just like, what? Oh my God, the nominations. And I was like, I got out of bed and literally got to the computer just in time. I opened it. And then it was like, Leslie Jones talking. And it was just like, I thought for a second we were nominated because the way that she presented, I think it was after Miss Maisel, like her inflection, like her voice went down, like, and that's it.
Like,
it's like, yeah, I was like, we're done. And I was like, oh, we did it. Oh, What We Do in the Shadows. And she yelled it really like fast. I was like, what? And I was like, oh, and then like I literally, and that's when I was like, I grabbed my phone and I was like, what? We just got nominated, because it was kind of surreal. It was really cool and such great company to be in. I mean, those shows I'm a fan of all those shows, Insecure, like all of those shows. I was just like, wow. I was just like, this is great. And it was just nice to be a part of that. On the other side of that, I was looking forward to potentially maybe, it would be nice to have a Latinx nominated for a supporting role. That didn't happen this year, but it didn't happen at all. So I was just like, okay, there needs to be a shift there. I think there's, some movement. I think Gloria Calderon Kellett posted something about, that today as well. And I retweeted and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like I'm really shocked to not see it in some of the major categories at all, with such great Latinx, work being done. I was really kind of shocked that it wasn't there, but I think that it's noted and we are making progress and hopefully moving in the right direction. But again, the show got nominated. I couldn't be happier. I'm so thankful. I love working with my cast and just like, it's a fun show. I love working on it.
Well, and congrats on the, I mean, I know they're not your nominations, but you guys got 3 writing nominations.
Yeah, 8 nominations altogether, which was amazing. Last year, I think we only had 1 because there was like under the radar, people had not heard about it. And I even think this year, I really don't think that all the people, that are going to vote have seen this show. Like we got a lot of votes to get us on the ballot, but I think a lot of people are going to watch the show for the first time, which is always nice, but it's also like, where have you been? Because I remember being a fan of like Schitt's Creek, like the first 3 seasons, and no one had heard of Schitt's Creek. And I was like,
exactly.
Yep. Yeah. And I was like, what? You have to watch the show. And they're like, no. And then now that it's on its final season, all of a sudden everyone's like, I've always loved it. And it's like, you found out like 2 weeks ago and you love it.
That's exactly. It's like, bitch, I was watching it from day one. Get your itch together. Harvey, I want to talk about the early years. I know you moved around a lot. You were kind of always the class clown. Did you use your comedy and big personality to kind of overcome any insecurities that come with like moving all the time or having to go to class as the new kid?
Yeah, I feel like, growing up and I moved a lot because my dad worked for a construction company and it was like, LA and Las Vegas were booming. So it was like back and forth everywhere. And at first it was kind of sad because I would get to, I've always been really open. I'm an open kid. And I just, I fall really quickly. And so like, I become friends with people and I have a best friend and then I have to leave them. And I was like, no, I don't want to leave. And it was kind of like traumatic for the first time it happened. But then after a while I would go to a new school and then I look back and be like, well, if I never left that school, I would never meet these friends, and I would never meet these new people. And so every school I went to became like a vaudeville circuit show. Like, it's like, I went to the new school, I made new friends. You're my best friend at this school, blah, blah, and it's like, and it was just fun because eventually I would get like, pen pal letters. Like it's literally like at schools I would go to, I get like, I was like an old, army guy and just getting a letter reading, like, it's like, dear Harvey, we miss you, and like send cookies or something, what I mean? Just like a nice little guy. And I was just like, all right. And so like, how the kids doing, but eventually after a while, it became so second nature. And I've always been a talkative person, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I just end up talking really, I just feel at ease when I talk to people and people feel comfortable around me. So it wasn't as hard as it could have been, because I know that I met a lot of kids along the way who moved and weren't as open. They were really shy and they were very timid and they were wallflowers and that's just not me. And so for me, it actually worked to my advantage that I'm such a loudmouth and just move around town.
Well, and being like the friendly guy, that's kind of like your thing. Everybody that's worked with you, your fans, and it's kind of even gotten you gigs, like networking, like even being part of what we do in the shadows, going to like a wine and cheese night with like friends. And that's how it happened. Some of the guest stars that I know that have come on the show are because of your own personal friendships.
Yeah.
But do you ever feel like now, since Harvey's like the friendly, cheerful guy, do you ever feel that there's this pressure now with like social media and fans? You can't really be in a bad mood. You can't be depressed. You can't be sad. You have this image now. Do you feel a pressure to be Harvey?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel the pressure. I always feel like I'm authentic to myself, and I feel, but it is true that sometimes if I like post a really cool artsy underwater picture or video that I slow-mo and added like a really cool slow music to it, and someone's like, "Are you all right?" And like, and like the thing that they reach out, which I appreciate that they're reaching out, but it's like, no, it's just like an artist, like, because that's not you. And it's like, okay, this is me, like, this is a part of me, like, I don't have to always be like, showing you like sunshine, like, it's like, this is cool and like different. And even if I was having a bad day, I'm a human, I'm allowed to have a bad day, you know what I mean? I try not to like bum other people down. Like, I have my close-knit, group of friends that I can communicate with, and like I always say, like, Harvey, like working Harvey is like a persona. Like it's like I go to work, get my job done, I'm having fun, I get to meet people, but then I also have my core like family and friends, and like around them, it's like it's not work. You know what I mean? It's like I'm being myself, but it doesn't have to feel like I'm going to a networking event or whatnot, because those are all part of the job. Like you go to a networking, like a party, and like you schmooze whatever. But most of the time, I find that those things are like pretty close to each other. Like I'm being myself wherever I go. Like I went to wine and cheese night, was being myself, not even like networking, just literally being myself. And the next day, someone that I met there texted me and said, "Hey, you should audition for my fiance's new show, What We Do in the Shadows."
And you're like, okay, maybe.
Well, first I was like, I don't think so. I'm not falling for that again. It was just that mentality of like, what? But then I'm very much like and I've been doing this for the last couple of years, and it's like the yes and the year of yes. That's what it is. But I've been doing that, and actually it does. With like, it's like, limits. Like you don't want to say yes to everything, but it's like if someone mentions something, it's like, yeah, come to this song. Okay. Like I'm very easygoing in that way, where like I like to meet new people. I like to try new adventures, and it's panned out. It's kind of made a career out of it.
And I love the stories about, like I said, your early years, such a passion for wanting to be an actor. You literally like would go through the trash, collect cans, do whatever you needed to pay for like improv and acting classes. And it's funny because you kind of came from Santa Ana, and I was involved in a theater there in Santa Ana as well. But I know a lot of the local community classes in Southern California that are not LA, some of them are very hit and miss. It's like a Waiting for Guffman, except not that funny.
Yeah.
Do you have any funny stories about some of your first classes? And what did you learn during those early classes that you still utilize and maintain today?
Well, I mean, like the first class I ever took was like this improv class, and it wasn't really even improv. All they were doing was babysitting, like they were just babysitting the kids that came. They divided the kids up between like the ages of like 6 to like 9. So you were in one group, and the older kids got to do like the cooler, older improv, and the younger kids, which I didn't know any better because I was like 6. So like I was like, wow, act like a lion? That's cool. And they're like, and now act like a bear. Wow, I'm an actor, And looking back at it, I was like, what the fuck was I doing? Like it was just going to, it was daycare. I was literally at daycare. But what I did remember from the first time I did improv was that there was this crackle to like performing that I could never, even looking back, I can't like put into a definition, a word, or a structure of a sentence. There's just this crackle that you feel, and I'm sure you feel, whenever you're in front of an audience, whenever you're in front of someone that's being entertained by you, when they laugh at your jokes, when you could hear and you have a connection and an instant rapport with someone without, you know what I mean? Like that thing right there, that crackle is what I could never understand as a young kid. And I needed, it was like, I was a junkie. Like I was like, I needed more. I need to find out more. I need to like dissect this and find out what it is about this. It's so great. And through the journey of trying to dissect that and find out, I kept working on my craft and eventually made it a profession. So I'm still working on it.
All right, we're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about your early career. And we're also, with some help from the What We Do in the Shadows Facebook fan club, we got a lot of fan questions for you, Harvey.
Okay.
So when we come back. And we're back. That's how quick we take breaks around here. Real fast, Patrick, somebody wants to know what kind of rosé you're drinking. It's actually Carl Schmidt from On the Red Carpet, by the way.
Hi, Carl. I he was actually texting me asking the same question, so I'm glad.
Of course he was.
It is a very expensive and special wine to me. It is a Shaw, which actually is like the $1 more expensive version of $2 Chuck.
It's the fancy Shaw.
Yeah, it's fancy Shaw, which I've now in quarantine been buying by the now they call it a cask, but it's a box of wine. Which is great because it's economical and you have so much wine in the fridge. The bad part is when you are reaching the bottom, you don't realize that until it like all of a sudden starts.
Too late.
Yeah, it's till it's too late. And I also like have no idea how much I'm drinking now. I used to be able to look at a bottle and be like, oh, I've had half. Let's have the other half. Now I'm like, have I had half or have I had 2 bottles? I don't really know.
It's time for a new Capri Sun.
Half of the half.
So thanks for your question, Carl.
Carl. Carl. Harvey, let's talk about the internship. That was kind of your first high-profile film, high-profile actors. You got to work with one of my favorites, Rose Byrne. What kind of nerves did you have on working on this kind of high-profile film? And what was your first day on set like?
Oh my God. So that's another example of like, going in for an audition that you know that you're not kind of right for. And on paper, this description of this character was definitely not me. I was like the wild card going in, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in and do it my way, and like hopefully they like it. And Sean Levy, the director, who's directs everything, and is producer for Stranger Things and all that. I just had him laughing on the floor. I remember he was on the floor covering his mouth, laughing so hard, and I was like, I still didn't get this part. I knew in my head, I was like, I still didn't get this part, but if I got him laughing and he's on the floor, then he'll remember, So I left, didn't think twice about it. Then I went to New Orleans and I was shooting this film with Luis Guzman and Nadine Velasquez. And I was so excited about that project because it was really cool. It never saw the light of day, but it was like one of those things that you just do and you're like, I'm so excited for this project.
Yeah.
It didn't. I get a call and they're like, hey, so the director really liked you. He's going to write a small part for you in the film. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be great. He's like, yeah, don't get excited. It's like 2 or 3 lines. And I was like, that's okay. I'll just go where are they shooting? In LA? And he's like, no, Atlanta. I was like, great, even better. I'm in New Orleans. I'll fly to Atlanta for a day. And they're like, no, he wants you there for 3 months. And I was like, 2 lines? And it's all like, yeah, because he wrote you into like the villain team. So you're going to be seen like in every scene, you're going to be seen. And at the end, you get the last laugh and the punch. And I was like, that's great. And I was like, okay. So I had to wrap my film, which they were like, the producers like, why don't you just pass on this? It's like, because we weren't even close to being done and they had extended the days already. And my contract said I was done at a certain time and it was coming up. And they're like, we need to extend because blah, blah. And I was like, we can wrap me up before. They're like, I have only these 2 scenes and yada, yada. And they're like, why don't you say no to that film? Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, it's not going to go anywhere. And I was like, okay. And it's like the advice that I could have easily been like, if I was like younger me, I would have been like, I guess you're right. And I won't take it. Yeah. And then looking back, the film that asked me to do that is the film that never came out. And they were like, turn down that film. And so I went to set. I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I got to work with Rose Byrne. The first day on set was the hottest day on record that year.
Oh my God.
For Atlanta, Georgia. And we were shooting the Quidditch scene outside.
Yeah.
So kids that are stuck and muggy and they're just like creeping up my thighs and we're running on the field and it's not cute. And like wardrobes to come over and like untuck you and you're sweating and like you have to be dry with blow dryers because she's a big girl. So I was just like, okay, well, this is not fun. Like, it's just like the first day and you're just like getting it's already hot and you're getting blow dried by like blow dryers and you're like, this is not. And it was just great. Just being there, like you can just see the caliber of like, that was like a $56 million budget film, and like being on this, that, or like I was used to like doing like indie darlings and like short, low budget or like TV or whatever. And you get to that setting, you're like, okay, now we're breaking for lunch. Everyone gets lobster and steak, and you're like, oh, wow. It's like, I'm used to like, the leftover crackers.
While holding a light and like the boom mic.
Yeah. No joke. Like literally maybe a month before I started filming that in New Orleans, I was on another project that was super low budget. And like, I liked the script because I was like, oh, good work. We can make it work, yada, yada. Again, that film never saw the light of day. But on the crafty, they were so cutting like budget so much that like you went to crafty table and on the crafty table, there was 3 items. There was a stick of gum. There was a bag of imitation Cheetos called Hippos. And then a light bulb. So you had your choice. So I took that light bulb because at home I needed a lamp that needed fixing. But literally that was the options at the crafting table. You had a stick of gum, a bag of Hippos, and a light bulb. That's you go from that to lobster and steak. You're really grateful.
As having somebody that has auditioned and stuff, been involved in that, it makes me so anxious when I hear of an actor who could have like passed on that because you were involved in another project. You just never know what's going to hit. You never know what's a sure thing. It makes me so anxious. And then once you had that film come out, everybody saw the internship. It was so funny. Did you feel again pressure like, okay, I have an A-list film now, I got to do another one, I got to hit while it's hot? Did you have all that kind of feeling going on?
Not in my head. Like I know my reps were like, shortly after that, there was an audition, a request for me to go into audition for this another 2 or 3 liner for a new show that was on Nickelodeon, but it hadn't even aired yet. No one knew about it. They didn't even know it was going to be a hit or anything. And my agents, I remember at the time, where like, or my manager at the time was like, oh, it's 2 lines, it's beneath you. And I was like, well, what's the story? What's the character? Oh, well, it's a new show, yada, yada. And this character, they're at a funeral, a family funeral. I was like, oh, he's part of the family? He's like, well, they're superheroes. And I was like, wait, he's a superhero? I was like, yeah, he's a superhero. I was like, I've never played a superhero, and we all want to see this in tights.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I was like, well, I want to play a superhero. I was like, but it's 2 lines. And I was like, who cares? I was like, I'll play the superhero. And then so they're like, okay, it's up to you, your call. And I went to the audition, I booked it. I went to shoot the little scene that was supposed to be 2 or 3 lines. On the spot, they added like 3 more lines for me because I was just improvising and stuff. 3 weeks later, they, added a whole episode for me because, as part of the family never goes away. And so I made my mentality of like, if I can get my foot in the door as part of the family, you could always visit and whatnot. And also it was a character that I would never get a chance to play otherwise. A superhero in tights, he's funny. I was like, yes, that's something to check off my list. And I recurred on that show for 4 years.
Well, it's such a testament, you hear so many people come out of an experience like you when you were moving around like a kid, and it like can really mess them up. But you're like a therapist's worst nightmare because you seem so well adjusted about it. And I think that, your mentality of just like saying yes to every new adventure has led to you to so much great stuff. I think it's a fantastic lesson for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our shit. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's like I'll still, go and like talk to therapists. It's like we all have our things to like get off our chest and talk and whatnot. But I made an actual solid goal a long time ago that I wasn't going to let other people's perception of what I should be living my life as be the way that I live my life. So like the idea that, I should be a statistic, and the idea that a person who looks like me and who's my size, who's my skin tone, who's, my height, like all those things, I had a teacher once tell me, what are you going to do about the weight? And it's like, what do you mean? And it's like, because you could be a leading man if you lose the weight. And I was like, I could be a leading man now. And he's like, I don't think so. And it's because, not because they're trying to be mean, but because they're a product of what, old Hollywood and the way that been told that starlets and stars only look a certain way. And I made it, for the first couple of years, though, it did really, fuck with my head because I was just like, oh, I guess you're right. And I was like, you're trying to fit a mold. You're trying to go to these auditions. I was like, I could be the, young, leading, handsome guy. And that you're trying to fit something when you're not selling that. What you're selling is yourself. You're your own product. So I'm not fitting the mold. I'm going to break that mold because I'm already my own mold. So I'm going to go to every audition, present myself as I am. And you either like it or you don't. It's like a cup of tea. Either you're in the mood for tea or you're not. But you know what? Someone else will. So just move that tray over to the next, table. Someone else is going to take a drink.
Well, it's such
I'm not going to take a drink. I'm going to spill that tea.
It's such a testament, though, to how Hollywood is changing, though, because I think that, they're right. Like, they're coming from a mentality of there's only one of every single type of person that's allowed to be famous at one time, unless it's a, straight white man or woman, cisgender man or woman. Other than that, there was one. There's like one like Latinx star. There's one man and woman. There's one black man and woman. There, and we have so far to go. But it certainly is getting to a point now where we're embracing what makes all of us unique and different, rather than trying to be like, well, I already checked that box off, so there's no room for anyone else in that box.
Yeah, and these stories need to be told. It's like a thing where people are like, well, what interesting stories they come up with these days. Like, no, these stories have been around. You just haven't been willing to listen to them. And so the stories that are coming to, forward are stories that have been around, stories of our trans brother and sister. You know what I mean? Like stories that have been around. You just never gave them the time of day to listen. And now all of a sudden we're like, what interesting stories they're coming up with. Did you see that show? And it's just like, yes, because we're all living in this planet and we all have a story, but we've been watching the same story over and over. And
that's exactly right.
Repetitive. So it's time for new stories, which aren't really new stories. It's time to give everyone the fair chance of their story.
Just like on the Hallmark Channel, we've seen that same Christmas movie over and over. And this year they've announced that they're going to be adding LGBTQ characters. It's like, okay. So Harvey, in reading comments on your social media, in the fan groups, on YouTube, what have you, there's a big resonating thank you from your fans, whether they're actors or not, for you doing the hard work and sticking with a difficult career to show the entertainment industry that looking or being a certain way doesn't limit your dreams or your success. To your point, whether it's as your representation as a curvy girl, as Mexican, as an LGBT actor, you've really done that work to make a name for yourself. At what point or what project did it hit you that, yeah, I'm actually doing this. I'm doing good. I'm okay. I'm going to make it.
I think that as an actor, I think we're always on that boat of like, this gig is your last gig. I think that all the time with any gig. You know what I mean? You might be doing dinner theater for an audience of 99 people, and you're thinking, oh man, you're thinking of the next gig, and you can never get comfortable with any gig because nothing's forever. But what you can do is you can make every gig you do have feel like the best thing in the world. So I always say that I give my best performance whether I'm doing a small black box theater performance or a big multi-million-dollar movie, because at the end of the day, I don't want to look back and say, oh, well, that one didn't pay much, so I just phoned it in, or that one wasn't as, so I was like, no, I want you to be able to say, I saw that person in this small production of Charlie Brown in this remote area. It's like, and he was fantastic. And I also saw that guy in every movie poster in LA and around the world, and he was fantastic. It doesn't matter.
Did you do Charlie Brown?
I did do Charlie Brown, yeah.
I did Charlie Brown too. What did you play?
I played Charlie twice.
I did too. We did it at the Roxy on Sunset Boulevard as their family series. We did it for a year.
Oh my gosh, no.
We have so much in common. I could be like your understudy, all about Eve. Like, we're going to do it.
We're just going to start saying, I will never leave you.
I know now. Okay. But I think we're in a new age of LGBT representation in media. You being gay is almost like a secondary headline, especially now with what we do in the shadows. Along the lines of like Luke Evans right now in The Alienist, it's like, oh, okay. It's kind of like a sub headline. It's not the leading headline, which is very different. Like in the Neil Patrick Harris or a Sean Hayes coming out in my time when actors were starting to come out. And I'm sorry, say what you will, because of media making such a big deal of like a Neil Patrick Harris or something. Whenever I see him play something, I'm like, gay actor, playing straight. And that's just ingrained in my brain. And I think media is responsible for that. And Patrick, maybe you can shed some light on this as well. But I don't think now being an LGBT actor is like the main attention getting headline. And it's not as pigeonholing. I just made that verb as before.
I think so. I think you're right. I think that before, I got to think about like, and when Patrick is doing, or Neil Patrick Harris is doing Doogie Howser, that would have been like a huge thing, that was like in the 80s and early 90s. And it's like, that would have been huge because, they were coming off the tail of like not knowing what that was with like Rock Hudson and like being infected. And that also went with the taboo world of being part of the LGBT, like there was so many elements to that. And then now it's like, oh, I guess it's okay to give this part to a person who is part of the, queer community and they can play straight. I was like, yeah, because they can do the role. It's like, what would be great would be to have queer roles played by queer actors for the most part. We don't get to see that a lot. We see like, wasn't he great playing gay? And it's just like, he was, and I'm not taking away from another thespian's, work, but wouldn't it have been great to actually go and like find an actual queer actor who could probably do that job? Because it's not the same when you flip it. Sometimes when you have like a queer actor going in for a straight role and they're like, oh, we love you, but no, I don't know, I don't see it. And it's like, that's funny because you saw that straight guy being gay in your vision of the story. But I think it's like we're slowly getting to a place where like, okay, it's starting to be better. But also, at the end of the day, your job as a performer and as an actor is to bring life to a new character, right? So when I become the character, whether it's, it should be in my limits of like, I'm not trying to go and play something that's definitely not my racial background, you know what I mean? Like it stick to like, those worlds of like, okay, I know that, I can relate to that, I connect to that. But also when it comes to like playing hetero or gay, I feel like as an actor, we don't ask, straight people what they do in their bedroom or what their sexual preference is. We don't ask straight people to come out to us as straight. And so when we ask a queer actor to be like, just be honest, just if you're queer, just be, and it's like, what they do in their bedroom is their business. If their craft speaks for themselves, then hire them on their craft. That's the whole motto.
And Patrick,
I think
with the AV Club, like, are the headlines kind of changing where before you would say out actor, is part of Emmy nominated series. Now I think their headlines are changing. Am I wrong?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of it is and thanks to the trailblazers, some of the names you mentioned who made it not a headline anymore. We were speaking about this earlier, just about shows and talent. You want to honor the fun new shiny thing, and you know, there was a period in time when the shiny new thing was being out and proud as a gay person. And, you know, I think still we're having a moment for the trans community, and those are necessary. Those are necessary first steps for it to be an important thing and for that to be spoken about, and really, you know, people doing in-depth interviews about what it's like to be a member of whatever community, whatever minority community you're talking about. And then we're able to move past it, because that's an old story now. Like, you know, for if I was going to interview Harvey, you know, and actually Harvey, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about this, but you were a big part of the AV Club's Why We Love series, discussing your love of Annie, which Alexander brought up a little bit ago. For those of you listening that have no idea what I'm talking about, it was a 4-part series that discussed why members of the LGBTQ community love different things that are stereotypically things that we love. So why do LGBTQ people love musicals? Is a big one, which is where we discussed Annie. And, you know, we launched that as a LGBTQ focused thing during Pride Month, but we're going to have that go on to be about, like, you know, why we love, you know, watching people fall down, or why we love reality competition shows.
I love it.
Right? We're going to expand it past that. But there's an importance to talk about that kind of stuff, but then it's also important to throw that entirely aside after you've had the opportunity to get past the new and shiny. I think we look at situations like, I think that's why it was so important to have somebody, you know, all your feelings about her family aside, but Caitlyn Jenner, you know, to have somebody go through that transition. You know, when we were introduced to Laverne Cox, she was already her gorgeous, fabulous self. And obviously we're all working on ourselves. But, you know, I think that was like a level of acceptance of the trans community for people that, you know, actors and actresses that are trans, like Laverne, coming into your life. That was a first introduction. And then the next step was to see someone actually transition, because I think it's been a lot harder for people to not call Caitlyn because they knew Caitlyn as a different name before. Right. And, you know, I think it's a little similar when you're looking at actors that we know are queer, or know are you know, an other in some sort of way, and it's hard for Hollywood to switch their brain off and be like, but I know you're that. And you see this even with straight cisgender white actors. You know, a lot of like the actors that came up and became really big in the 90s intentionally didn't do a lot of interviews, because they even thought just knowing that I have kids or not is going to make you look and think I'm different.
Or even in a relationship, being in a relationship doesn't make you desirable. It's like no longer the love interest, because it's like, well, we know you have a wife and 2 kids, so nobody wants to go home with that. And it's like, you don't know that.
Well, yeah, exactly, especially in Hollywood. But yeah, so I think, you know, there's 2 sides of it. And Alexander, this unfortunately is not the first time we've talked about representation like this when I've been on your show. And I think, you know, obviously, if we can get to the point where there is, you know, so many characters of all different shapes and sizes and kinds, then everybody can play everything, because the opportunity is there. Like, okay, great, a queer actor didn't get that role to play a queer role, but they'll get the next one because there's 60.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's like the
right now, there's only a small handful. We need to give those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think you're right about, like, you know, it's time and we're getting there, and it's like we're going to get to a point where that's going to be the case. But you're right, it's important to be an ally and to be a representative of the community, because you do need those voices and to use their platforms to elevate us to that level. You're absolutely right. I do like what we do in our show is that, you know, every character in our show is queer, and we don't make it a topic, like you said, you know.
I love that.
Yeah, everyone in our show is queer, and the characters are queer. Whether you find out what their personal life is, because in Guillermo's situation, you don't even know sexually what he's doing, and that's none of your business. You know, to him, it's such a private thing. But with the vampires, like, you know, we just saw where, like, Nando and Laszlo, you know, were erected and they didn't finish, and so they finish each other off. They're like, do you want to go in the room and just and then it's not even like a woo, 2 gay vampires going into this. Like, no, they're queer, and also it's their sexual, like, whatever they feel, they're just going with the flow, and like, well, they're pansexual or they're whatnot. Like, let them live their life. It's not the whole topic of conversation. It's like, well, now they're the gay vampires or the queer vampires. It's like, no, they're just vampires who happen to, that's their sexual preference, and it doesn't have to be the whole topic of conversation, but it is a part of who they are, so we will address it.
Harvey, what was your coming out story? Coming out in a Mexican family. My family is Mexican as well, and we came from very ultra conservative, Roman Catholic, what have you. What was kind of your coming out experience?
I mean, yeah, it was a same Catholic family, but for me it was a little different. I think because I was so independent growing up in a weird way. Like I remember, like, you know, asking for money to take my first improv class when I was little. My mom said, "No tenemos dinero," like we have no money for that. And I said, if I can find the money, can I do my own thing? And she's like, "Mijo, if you can find your own way, you can do whatever you want." And since then, I never asked my parents for a dime. Like I literally started collecting cans and selling stuff and working at a swap meet. So I really kind of became independent at a young age. Another reason why moving around was kind of easy for me because I was pretty much an adult going to a tour, you know, touring like different cities. And in that sense, for me, being a kid meant like acting, like playing. That was fun for me. And so coming out to my mom wasn't that hard because I think it was one day she was at the dinner table. She would always just hint at like, "Oh, la Adriana está bien bonita." Like one of my closest dearest friend, Adriana, who she didn't know was also a lesbian. Like she was like, "She's so pretty." She's like, "You two would make such a cute couple." And I was like, "Mom," like I was like, and I remember like being like 15. I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Cause you know." And she was just like, "Okay." And she's like, "Mom." And I was like, "You know." And she was like, "No, no sé nada." Like I don't know anything. I was like, "Mom, you know I'm queer, right?" And she goes, "Oh, pues con que estés feliz as long as you're happy." And I was just like, "Okay, great." I think she knew already, but she just needed me to say it. Like she needed to verbally hear me say it to give her like, "Okay, that's done. Enough with the elephant in the room." You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it was that kind of mentality. But I always thought she knew because a mother always knows. You know what I mean? And so like I feel like she knew, but she was just trying to get me to say it to show that she wanted to be okay with it. And my mom was great, you know what I mean? And of course it was hard because she's a product of her time and like where, you know, she comes from, that's very much like frowned upon. And it's very, you know, machismo and that culture is very, it's kind of hateful, you know what I mean? And towards the queer community, which is something that needs to change. And I think it is changing slowly in Mexico, but like it's slowly but surely. But my mom was great about it. My dad was like great about it, you know what I mean? So I was very lucky. I know that's not the norm. But I think it's because I was so independent that like I didn't care. Like growing up, I didn't care what you thought about me because I was on my like one-way vision. Like I was just like, I have a mission, I'm doing this. And people are like, "Oh, you're gay." I was like, "Shut the fuck up." And like you go on your, you know what I mean? Like it's like you're on your mission and you're so focused. You're just like, you know what I mean? And you're like, focus. And like whatever people say, it was just this train's already in motion and you're either getting on it or it's leaving you behind. And that was my mentality.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, it's all what we do in the shadows, and we were answering tons of your fan questions, and we're going to talk a little bit about fight choreography as well when we come back. Okay, and we're back. Harvey, being authentic, like you said, is such a part of your life, and it's also part of your acting process, from working with the writers on the show to developing your character to even doing your own stunts with 104-degree fever, making buñuelos on set to make sure that they're authentic. Like you are the real deal. Instead of just doing it like the Hollywood, like let somebody else do it. It's all smoke and mirrors anyway. I want to take a look at rehearsal for your fight scene that closed a whole season. This is some of the rehearsal. Kurt, can you play the footage? This is
playing in action. Oh no. And up. Cut.
What I love so much about seeing that and your commitment to doing that is not once did I think, oh, you know, that's a heavier set person that's in this action. It was all part of the story to so much that I was like, I was in it and I was sold. And I was like, yes, it was such an exciting time for the story, as well as seeing your character, as well as knowing about the actor behind it was such an exciting time because it is, yeah, this is our superhero. This is our action star. This is what it looks like. But I know you were really sick when you actually filmed it.
Yeah, so that was the rehearsal, and everyone says, "Oh my gosh, that looks so great." How long was that? Like, after weeks of rehearsing, I was like, "Girl, that was 30 minutes." I learned the routine 30 minutes before that. We move so quickly on the show that I keep thinking about that. I was like, I come from theater and like training, and like, so for me, it was like learning like a dance. So for me, it was like, okay, I got it. It was hard. I mean, you saw it. It was multitasking events. I'm pulling things out of pockets I didn't know I had. And all that, but like it was tough, and I learned that that was filmed after learning it after 30 minutes. Some people are like, that looks great, and I was like, that wasn't even the polished one. That was like the rehearsal. My hat was falling, whatever. But the day we shot the last scene, which was was the last day of filming for the season, which was around December 22nd, around there of last year, and it's the last day. So we're already pushed by 2 days. We were supposed to wrap on the 19th, and we pushed it another 2 days because we run behind because of weather or whatnot. And we shoot really quickly on the show. We shoot one episode every 3 to 4 days. So it is a quick time. One episode gets shot in 3 to 4 days. And
that's insane.
So we cross shoot the episodes, which means in 1 week, you might shoot episode 201 and then 203 on Tuesday and then 206 on Wednesday and then go back to 201 on Thursday. So you go back and forth on episodes because, we're just
big movie
location, and you're going like, the only person who has really the, an arc for the season where it has to connect the dots is Guillermo, because he's the only human on the show. And all the other episodes, the vampires resolve their problems in the 30 minutes. It's like they have a problem, they resolve it. I don't. Like I have to like emotionally go through like the roller coaster, like slowly going through this climax. So for me, it was like going back to like 1, going back to 6. We killed this vampire. Now we know. And they're also really secretive about the story. So they, one episode they brought up a car, and I was like, where the fuck did he get a car? And he's like, oh, in the episode before this, oh, we can't talk about it. And I was like, I'm the one. You can't tell me what happened to my character. They're under such secret like clause that like the costume designers, the makeup people, they can't tell us. The actors, they can't tell us what's happening because they like to keep that mystery, because that's what the movie was shot. The movie there was no script there was a script, but there was no script given to the actors, and the actors were never told what the story of the movie was. Like they were brought to set every day, and they were like, in this scene, you're mad at him, and you got to get to the kitchen, and that's it. And that's all you get. And you have to improvise stuff. So you are telling a story, but they won't give you much. So you kept on your toes. But anyways, going back to that scene, I shot the scene. I was so sick. I remember Kayvon walked by me, and I wasn't talking to anyone. I was just looking at the floor, and he's all, oh man, I feel you, man. He's like, you're going to do it. You're going to kill it. And he was like pepping me because I was literally like about to fall over. I had no energy, 104 fever, the sickest I've ever been in my life. And I realized, at that point, if I stop production, we have to come back in the new year to shoot the scene. We have to fly everyone back to Toronto, makeup, hair, all the actors. And so I remember the director, Kyle Newacek, who's awesome. He directed Workaholics and created Workaholics with his buddies. He was like, hey man, he's like, you good? He's like, you think you can do it? And I was like, can we do it like in like 1 or 2 takes? And he's like, I seen you. You could do it, bro. I seen you. And I was like, that's not what I asked, but okay.
That is some pressure. I would imagine that's like when you're like on a medical show, like ER or Grey's Anatomy, and you're in one of like the surgical scenes, and there's so much happening. All it takes is one little thing to mess up, and it's like, oh crap.
And the lingo.
Yes. Okay, Harvey. There's a really active Facebook fan group page for What We Do in the Shadows, and they have sent me so many questions. So I picked out a few, and you can answer them as quickly as you want. And what I have found out is that the fans of What We Do in the Shadows are very intense, just like my fellow Trekkie family. They know every fact, every line, every movement from every episode. And what I love about this fan page is they share stories, memes, fan art. It's very supportive. But here's their questions. Ashley wants to know how Guillermo met Nandor and became his familiar. Will this be covered more in season 3?
I hope so. I've always asked myself that question. I've given myself my own backstory, which could be wrong, so I could give you what I gave myself as a backstory.
Yeah.
I think it was that, Guillermo wasn't really happy in high school. We do have, clips of him like talking about being kind of a loner, not having a lot of friends. I think it was made fun of a lot just because he didn't fit in. And he saw an escape in Armand in Interview with the Vampire. And so he saw how glamorous and Latinx and sexy you could be, and he longed for those things, and he longed because society told him that he wasn't those things. And so I feel for me, he looked out to see where he could find a key to this door, and that key was Nandor. And so when he gets that promise, I think he met him right out of high school. He was working at Panera Bread. For some reason, we met him. Like he must have been closing that night and was in the back alley, and Nandor was probably gonna suck his neck off. And then he's like, "You're a vampire." He's like, "Yes." And he's like, "In my head, I made up this scenario. By the way, this is not what the writers wrote." And then he just said, "I want to be a vampire too." And I think Nandor really kind of took to Guillermo and saw how pathetic he was in his face, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And he just took him under his wing. And then it was supposed to be like a trial 1 week thing, and then it became like this like lifetime of a decade.
I love to call it Panera Bread.
Yes.
Like give it its full, appropriate, proper name.
It's funny.
Story I've given myself. I'm for sure thinking the writers have their own vision that they're gonna say and stuff, but that's what I've given myself so far.
And it fits.
When we're giving you the writing Emmy award.
Yeah. Okay. Nikki wants to know, what other aspirations do you have besides acting? Do you want to get involved in directing, writing?
Yeah, so I do want to do a little bit of everything. I've recently just started producing stuff with my writing partner, Janie Holt, who's amazing. Shout out to Janie. And she and I have been working on projects together. We just recently produced, and she directed, a web series called The Filth, and it's amazing, and you can stream that online. And to produce something is a full-time job. So I got to do that last summer, and it was kind of putting on a different hat. You have to make sure people are on time, locations are locked in. It's a lot. So when I go to set as an actor and like people are like, "Oh, it's really hard." It's like, it is hard. Everyone's doing a job, but most of the time actors get to set, they put on their makeup and they have to wait or something. And people are like, "Oh, we're just waiting." It's like, you don't know what's going on. Like they probably like have some kind of drama happening on set that they lost the location, the car won't start. One of the makeup people, can't find the blood. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like you just don't know. And as a producer, you know what's going on with everything because it comes down to you if that succeeds or not. So I've been doing more of that, producing, writing more. So I like to do that, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it.
It's funny that you mentioned producing, how that can be so different. You mentioned craft services. I got the chance to produce and direct a series that was online, years ago at this point, when I was a little baby. But I got put in.
Wait, what happened?
Patrick.
We lost you, Pat. Oh, your mic.
No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
we hear you.
It was very engaging, whatever you were saying.
You were about to get to the climax of that story. Like, and the most important part was. Oh no! It happened again! It happened again! It happened again!
Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened again!
Basically, I'm not meant to tell this story, but long story short, I got put in charge of craft services because the girl that was doing it the first week went out and bought all this organic stuff, which was delicious but very expensive and blew basically our whole budget. So I had to take it over for the rest of the entire shooting schedule, and all we had were those like Stouffer's lasagna every day because they were like $5 and fed like 20 people.
Hippo chips, hippos.
Hippos, I'm gonna look those up.
And all right. Light bulb. I didn't have a light bulb.
Harvey, Lizzie wants to know, how come your vamp family doesn't smell the blood on your shirt when you come back from killing vamps?
That's a good question, and we talked about this. Well, the idea that they smell blood, if they don't see the blood because it's vamp blood, and vamp blood probably smells like their blood, and so like if they're around blood as food and it smells like them, so it's the pheromone. So if I'm around my own pheromone, I don't catch it. But if it's, you know what I mean, I'll catch the opposite of that. If I came covered, in human blood, they'd be like, "What's going on?" But that was vampire blood. Even the texture was different if you saw it. So even to them, it's gonna not even cross their mind that I would be killing a vampire because I went out to get a Tide to go pen, And so like the fact that I come back in covered in blood, and then Laszlo says, "Nice tie." Oh, I'm wearing a tie dye. He's like, "Nice tie dye." And he went to a concert, and I'm just like, you guys are idiots. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, sure. Because to them, they're so self-absorbed. They wouldn't even give me the time of day to memorize my name, yet alone them asking about blood on my outfit.
Rachel wants to know, who else would you want to see as a guest star? We know you've had amazing guests: Doug Jones, Haley Joel Osment, Mark Hamill, Rachel Evan Wood, Tilda Swinton, and the list goes on and on. Who do you want to see as a guest star?
Oh man, there's so many. I would love to see like Jennifer Lopez come to the show. I would love to see Amy Sedaris come to the show.
Oh my God, Amy Sedaris would be so good.
Amy Sedaris on the show. I'm a big fan, Amy Sedaris fan. I've loved her. I can watch Strangers with Candy.
Yes.
I just would love for her to come and play with us. Antonio Banderas would obviously be a great choice.
What if he was Armand? That would be insane. My mind would explode.
I have so many, and every year it's just like Christmas because we don't know who's going to come play with us. And also, truth be told, we had other guest stars that were supposed to come play with us this season, but since we shoot in Toronto and we shoot really close to the holidays, and the scripts, change and evolve a lot, it gets pushed and pushed. And so some of the people that were supposed to come play with us, I won't even say who, couldn't fly in because it was the holiday season almost. And it was, we shoot through Thanksgiving because in Canada, you don't celebrate Thanksgiving on that day earlier for them. And so we were like, not even thinking about that. We're like, come shoot this week. And they're like, isn't that Thanksgiving Day? And we're like, oh, that's right. You're in America and we're in Canada. That's right. Sorry. And so things couldn't work out schedule wise, but we had like 2 other names that you would have been like, whoa, it didn't work out this time, but who knows?
Okay. David wants to know, and I have this question as well, how you guys worked out the comic timing. It's very specific for the style of the show. Like I said, it's almost like a Christopher Guest movie. It's a little bit of The Office. It's a little bit Addams Family Values. How did you build that chemistry so quickly with this cast and that kind of specific timing?
Well, it's so funny that you say that because I never met. I was supposed to have a chemistry read for the show with Kayvon when I went to the audition, and I never did. After a couple of weeks, after everyone had said he's going to test, and Guillermo was 20 years older than I am, so I didn't think I was the wild card again for this role. And so I was like, oh, I'm not going to get this, but I'm going to go in and give it my best, And I was supposed to have a chemistry, never had a chemistry. On a Sunday, I got a call from Jermaine and Taika. I was like, hey, is this Harvey? And I was like, yes. And he's like, hey, you got it. And I was like, what? And I had to call my agent and tell them that I booked the role. I never had a chemistry read. So I was worried sick because I was like, how do you have a chemistry with someone you haven't even met? And so I went on the first day of shooting the pilot and I met Kayvon. I was like, please be awesome, please. And I met Kayvon. I was like, oh my God, this is all I need. And if you look at it, the rest of the vampires are so self-absorbed. They're just a bunch of assholes, to like the characters around them. So you can't fuck that up. You can't fuck up being an asshole. So you just like do it. And they did it, and it was like great. And so like it works for Guillermo because he's like the only human. And all the vampires are fighting with each other and they're fighting, they're yelling at me and it worked perfect. But also it goes to the whole thing that this cast is amazing. Every one of those actors is amazing at what they do. They're so good at their role that it's like the perfect casting. The casting was done perfectly.
Have they ever, have you guys discussed at length at all about like what you being cast, how that changed the character? Because like you said, so much younger than what they were potentially envisioning.
Yeah, so they've asked Paul and Jermaine this, and Paul said that, they had an idea of what they wanted, and so Jermaine, like what they wanted for the character, but that they weren't like solid on like what exactly is it. And to credit to what they said was that when I came along, they were like, oh, he gets it. So like the idea that like they weren't sure what exactly it was going to end up being, but when I came to the audition, dressed the way I did, I parted my hair the way that Guillermo wears it now is the way I did it for my audition. I parted my hair, I popped out these glasses, these Harry Potter glasses I had. I didn't have stubble. This is like weeks and weeks of not shaving, but I didn't have stubble and I looked even younger than the character was supposed to be. So I was like, this isn't good. So I went into my makeup room and like got a little sponge and put some eyeliner on it and just did
scruff. Oh, funny.
Yeah, and I made myself look, and that I think that audition tape is floating somewhere, but like I made myself look older, and then they were like, yeah. And so in makeup and hair, Jermaine was asked, or Taika was asked, how do you want Guillermo's hair to look? And he goes, Javi, what'd you get for the audition? He's like, oh, I did that parting thing. And I'm like, yep, that. And the wardrobe was inspired by the wardrobe I wore to the audition.
And it's so definitive. I mean, like you can't think of the character any other way. Andrew wants to know what the genesis was for the idea to have Guillermo be a familiar and a vamp hunter. Whose idea was that? Was that always kind of in the outline, or? No, it was news to me because I remember reading the last script for last season 1, and it was just there. It was just like, wait, what? We're doing DNA testing and it says and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I get it. It's going to cause like turmoil in the household. And I didn't know they were going to go full blown Van Helsing on season 2, which was great. And I loved it. Yeah. But I think they had an idea, but they didn't, they don't tell the actors anything. Even when I came up with Guillermo's last name, because in the first couple episodes and the interviews that we do, confessionals, when we go, they show our name in the bottom and they're like, we were doing improv and someone said, state your name. And I was like, hi, I'm Guillermo.
and I didn't have a last name. And I was like, what's my last name? And it was like episode 2. And I went to Jermaine. I was like, can I give him a last name? He's like, oh, well, all right. What were you thinking? And I was like, how about De La Cruz? And he goes like, that's good.
And it's so perfect, by the
And
way. Like,
yeah,
it's so
like,
perfect.
He didn't tell me though. He didn't tell me why I was perfect, but he already knew why I was perfect. And then it led to the finale. And then I was like, oh, and I chose, what if I didn't choose De La Cruz? What if I chose like Sanchez, or something like, it's like, what if I didn't choose De La Cruz? De La Cruz is so perfect. And that just another testament of like, it was Kismet. This is all, the universe works in mysterious ways.
You have some really good luck, Harvey. Like, I just have to say, like, I just want you to come on audition with me because like, it's working for you. Amanda wants to know what vampire power you would want in real life.
I like flying, like I already do it. I would like to.
No one's doing that right now.
I'm not a vampire. That's what you're thinking. I'm not. I would love to fly. I always get excited when we do the harness stuff. When we get
so
to
fun.
Everyone else hates
fun.
it. Everyone hates it. It's not comfortable because it's all like, and
your junk is
yeah, and you're like in there. But I like it when you're actually doing something fun. But Matt Berry is afraid of heights, and everyone else like hates it. We always do him right after lunch too. So poor Kayvon, like he's a big tall guy.
Yeah.
And he like literally has lunch. And like, oh man, that was good. And I was like, you forgot we have harness after lunch. Fuck. And he gets to get the harness, and he gets squished like a sausage when you're in the air. Everything just gets like he just kills everything.
Catherine wants to know, who was your favorite character besides Guillermo on the show?
My favorite character besides Guillermo. I have to say I really love working off Nandor. Like Nandor has such great like lines, like this fucking guy. And
so good.
But all the characters have their one-liners that I really enjoy. I love Colin Robinson, but to an extent, just because it's fun to watch. But then I was like, I can't watch this. It's like you can watch. Like,
I know people like him.
Yeah, we all know. Colin Robinson.
Do.
So for me, it's like I love Mark's approach to that. And then sometimes I can't tell if Mark's fucking with me because when he talks, his voice is pretty similar to Colin Robinson. And so when he's talking to me, I can't tell if he's like trying to purposely bore me, or he's doing a bit, or if he's just being Mark.
I want to give a special shout out to Natasha and Julie, who co-run the What We Do in the Shadows fan group on Facebook. I suggest you join it. It's a lot of fun stuff every day. Now, you also host Before the Shadows, which is a talk show with the actors. Being a host is a totally different format. And you're a character, but now you're also Mr. Host. How has that experience been for you?
I mean, it's a hard job. So my hat's off to you because it is a hard job. It is not an easy job to do. And I did it out of kind of necessity because we were in quarantine and the fans wanted to see more BTS of the show. And so it started off as a one-time thing. And I did the episode of the first one on my Instagram, Before the Shadows. And then after that, we got it was streaming like within the first couple of seconds, had like 27,000 views live. And it was just like I was like, where are these people coming from? And it's like, they were all like watching whatever we were posting. And I was like, oh man. And then the next week someone said, oh, okay, we'll see you next week. And I was like, I didn't plan on next week. I was like and the responsibility of that. But then I was like, what else am I fucking doing? I'm home. Like, I might as well like be productive. So my sister came on board and helped me write because it's a full-on job. You have to write the story. Especially with us, we had a game. We have we have back like clips that we have to pull out, which we work with an amazing team out of Brooklyn that like we paired off with. Like it was just an amazing thing to do, but it was a full-time job. Like we had like Wednesday meetings, like who we got on the show this week? Oh, we got Jermaine, but he's on the time zone with New Zealand. And we got we have Kayvon in London, but he's like so many hours ahead or whatever. So getting everyone's schedule is hard, and being a booker is hard, being a writer is hard, being everything for the show, which you have to do yourself. As it's like doing everything yourself can take a toll. But I loved it. But you can watch all the episodes on beforetheshadows.com. Every single one of the episodes is up on the website, and you can watch everything, all the really cool stuff from like the makeup, hair, like all the stuff that we show like behind the scenes when we're in the makeup chair and all that stuff, and talking to the costume designers, the writers, the producers, stuff you'll never know unless you watch it. So
I highly recommend it. Especially, people are watching the episodes over and over, like I am. Even, just if I have like a quick minute and I just need something to relax to, it's something that I put on because it is so genuinely funny and it has a lot of heart to it. It has a lot of sincerity to it, which I love. And I love that, the vampires are kind of assholes because we all can be assholes. And I just love it's like, yeah, This is who we are. So I wanted to ask, in every TV show, when the two lead characters finally hook up or get married or have a baby, whatever, it stops being funny and then the show is kind of ruined. Remember when Growing Pains introduced Leonardo DiCaprio and it was like, oh God, the show sucks now. Are you afraid to actually have Guillermo be a vampire? Do you think that would change the whole dynamic?
I don't know. I feel like for some reason in my head, I thought that he would be close to that dream after season 1, but that was not realistic. I mean, where do we go from there? But also throwing this wrench in the things of, the scheme of things, it's like, it's great to know that he's a Van Helsing and that he longs to be something that is not in his blood and nature naturally, but also who knows, he could be both, I think it's definitely put us at a crossroads that leads to, more seasons of what to do. It's like we could go one way or the other, and I don't know. I just don't know, as I'm not the writer or producer, but I would have ideas. But I don't think it would be bad if he became a vampire eventually, because would it have a twist to it? Because is his blood, somehow different because he is a Van Helsing and if he becomes a vampire? Does that it's still in him and it's a part of him? So does that make him like a blade?
Oh God. Well, and maybe we should keep it for the big screen, What We Do in the Shadows, right? Although I think it would be funny, like a South Park, how Kenny always died, is he kept trying to become a vampire and it just doesn't take. Every episode tried to become a vampire in a different way. I think that'd be hilarious.
He introduced the mosquito hunters of the tri-state area, which are amazing, like Craig Robinson, and so we have that team now that can come visit again, and they're still a team. So it's like, and how do we keep them at bay because they don't know about my roommates, and that's still a secret that hasn't been, addressed. And how to keep everyone safe, because this team is really nice to Guillermo, and they encourage him. They say he's cool, words that he's not used to listening to because he has Stockholm syndrome, and he's been living with vampires that break him down every day and call him worthless. And now he's found people who actually like him. So this is going to be a nice conflict for season 3. And it could go for a while because technically there could be an alliance. There could be something bigger than us. Maybe there's something bigger. Remember, there's still werewolves out there. There's witches. There's vampires. There's,
zombies.
Warlocks. There's zombies. There's so much happening that eventually, a volcano might erupt.
I briefly want to talk about Room 104. Like I said, it is one of my favorite shows on HBO. And for viewers and listeners that don't know, it's a very simple concept. It's one hotel room without a set decade. Every episode, it could be horror, it could be musical, it could be dramatic. You never know what the episode is really going to be. And it all takes place in one hotel room. As an actor, what's it like working? I mean, it's the same confined set. That's got to be a little daunting. It's like you don't have any big props, big set pieces to rely on.
It was kind of cool to go visit. Well, first, Natalie Morales directed my episode, and she's the one who asked for me to audition for the role because she thought it'd be perfect. And again, this role is totally different. It takes place in the 90s. This is like an emo skater dude, and it's like all these different characters that I get to play that I love when people see me as different things, And Natalie has seen the show and was a fan of We Do in the Shadows, and this character has nothing to do with Guillermo, nothing like him at all, which is really nice. And he's kind of a badass and in his own sense. So is Guillermo, but our episode premieres the first week of September, which is not that long. Now that you think about it, it's like a month away. Wow, September's like a month away. It just hit me. But yeah, it's a great episode. This is the last season, and the Duplass brothers have done an amazing job with I'm such a fan of that show. Every episode is its own masterpiece, and to be there was kind of cool. It was being in an exhibit because you see it 3 times, and so you're walking around the window, and it's oh my! And then when you open the door, they always do a thing at the door, and you can see the numbers. So being there was kind of giddy but actually it's so smart because it's a production that takes place in one room. You're so used to going to sets where that's the bedroom, that's the front yard on the same lot, in the Sony lot. And then in this production, it's literally just a room, and they have the rest of this empty lot soundstage that's just empty because you have wow, you have so much space because you don't need to shoot anything else. Everything's, and so production must be really well, managed because it's just one room. But I'm sad to see it go, but it's going out with a bang, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And it's going to be great. It's going to be a great episode. Ours is a foam party that takes place in the
foam
room.
Party. Yep. And I love it. And, my biggest takeaway from being able to spend time with you is do not limit yourself, because you have definitely proven, even on paper, if it doesn't look right or it doesn't, who knows, just go for it. And our ideas of what something looks like is just totally different.
Totally. And I'm a big believer of this is an actor and as a performer that sometimes you get discouraged because our job is, we hear more no's in 1 week than the normal human, non-actor hears in a lifetime. Actors hear more no's in 1 week from auditions and meetings and stuff than most humans hear in a lifetime. And no's are harsh. And so you have to have thick skin in this business, but also remember that just because you heard that no this week, that just means there's more possibility next week, and the idea that that could be a yes tomorrow. And like I said, I made a career out of that. Like even magicians, like I was in Toronto shooting a film and they wanted to see me on tape for producers in LA. And I was like, yes, it's perfect. This role's perfect. I love Benedict, like, yes, it'll be perfect. At the last minute, they called and they go, oh, we already have options. And they're like, don't worry about it. We'll find something else. It's just, they're not gonna look at the tapes. They're gonna have the auditions in LA for producers in person. And I'm in Toronto. I'm in Vancouver. Sorry, I'm in Vancouver. And I was like shooting a movie there. And I was like, no, I'm so right for this. I think I'm so right for it. Like, no, they said, don't worry about it. And I was like, no, but I really feel like they said, no, thank you. And I was like, and I called my manager and I was like, wait a minute, they shoot here though, right? They shoot in Vancouver. And he was like, yeah. I was like, well, then by SAG regulations, they have a casting office in Vancouver. And he's like, oh yeah, they do. And he's like, well, then can I go to the casting office in Vancouver and meet with their casting director here? And so we kind of went under the rug and like went to the casting director without them knowing that we had already talked to the LA casting director who already passed on me. And then they were like, yeah, we'll see him. We're always looking for new talent. And, we don't see a lot of American actors go through our office because they're in Canada. Yeah. And so I did it. And a couple hours later, they had to call the office in LA and say, we got our guy. And they're like, oh, which one did you like from the tape? We found him in Vancouver.
I love that because you know how the game works and you played it and you took a chance.
Always took a chance.
All right, we're gonna finish up. We're gonna play a little rapid fire. Are you ready, Harvey?
I'm ready.
Okay. What character would you want to play besides Guillermo on Shadows?
Ooh, okay.
Male or female, doesn't matter.
Ooh, male, gender bender. Okay, Naja, that'd be fun.
Yes. What extravagant thing have you bought with your TV money?
I don't buy extravagant things. What's the most extravagant thing? No, you know what? I do buy vacations, like nice vacations, just because I didn't get to do those when I was younger. So I take my family on vacations because travel is the only thing you can buy that makes you richer.
Yep. Oh, I love that. That's going to be like Travelocity's new slogan. Most embarrassing or worst thing you've said on a red carpet or interview. When you look back, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that.
Oh, wow. I'm sure there's tons, and I'm sure that I look back, but I didn't think they were dumb at the moment. I think maybe the one somebody asked me in the carpet, what song are you listening to right now? And this was like maybe 2010 or something. And I was just like, I'm really into Miley Cyrus right now. And it was like her in the USA or something. Like it was like, and I look back at that, I'm like, what are you saying? It was such like a moment to be like, and I love like all music, and I was already like, a fan of like Billie Holiday and stuff. Like, why would you say that? I think I was just saying because I had just heard it on the radio on the way to the carpet event, and I was like, living in the USA by Miley Cyrus.
That's so cute. If you could go back in time and star in any past Hollywood film, what character would you play? And again, male or female?
Oh, wow. Oh, this is a good one. Jeez. I mean, are we talking like classics? Like, I would love...
Just
like,
a past movie.
Another gender bender would be, something with like All About Eve. Or Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I like to play both characters, and I do like a split, like a Parent Trap. Why not? Haley Mills kind of style.
Yes.
Like, or go back and play the Parent Trap with the boy, and like split the Haley Mills character in the same person. It's me. That'd be another one.
Okay. I actually love that idea. What celebrity would you want to share your quarantine bed with?
My quarantine bed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just because you're lonely and like you need someone to cuddle, of course.
Yeah, cuddling. Okay. What celebrity?
I mean, like when I was watching the thing on Netflix and Zac Efron was in Iceland,
God.
It looks so cold and he has a beard now, so I was like, oh my God, he looks like he needs a hug. So I would probably be like, oh my God, you look cold, So that's probably
okay. I've done 5 interviews this week, and every person has said Zac Efron from Netflix. Yes, because now he's like a zaddy now. Woohoo!
People don't like it. I don't like this new beard. I was like, okay, bye.
I'm a fan of showman Zac Efron, not Baywatch, not High School Musical, but like showman Zac Efron is
You want him
perfect.
to perform before he goes into bed.
Yes. What is a role that you auditioned for that you didn't get that still haunts you today, that you still think about?
A role that I auditioned for that I didn't get. Well, the role that I wanted to get that I thought was the right role for me and it didn't pan out, I didn't get, and then the show was canceled. After, I don't even remember the name of the show, but that was that, thank God, because then I moved on to a different show. But a role that I didn't get that I look back, no, I don't have any regrets because if I didn't get it, it wasn't meant for me. So
and everything's falling in place for you, girl.
Tell our viewers I didn't get it at that moment, but it wasn't meant for me. So I don't even dwell on it. I mean, I look at the projects, and most of the time when I look at the projects who they did cast, I always go, oh, because it's totally different. It's not my vibe. It's totally a different thing. It's rare that I go, I could have fucking done that. You know what I mean? It's not I don't do that because it's it wasn't meant for me. If it was meant for me, I would have seen myself in it and it would have happened and I'd be there.
Well, that's a very sweet way to look at it because I am the most bitter person when I see things. Harvey, tell our viewers and listeners where they can find you and also tell us about your fan club.
Yeah, so you can find me on social platforms like Instagram and Twitter. It's at Harvey Guillen, just my full name, so it's not that hard to find. You can also join our new fan club. We just designed these new shirts.
I love them.
Yeah, it's so great. It's simple and great. And a portion of the proceeds go to Chirla. So I would really love everyone to just support just because it's such an issue here in Los Angeles and all over really. But it's a great organization that you guys got to support. So buy a shirt, support the organization, support Chirla. And who knows, you might be working on other merch that you guys can buy for the Harvey Guillen Club. So.
Hey, I'm all about it. Any indication on when we could see new episodes? I'm sure it's going to be quite a while.
So we're in the middle of talks now, actually. It's so funny that you say that. We literally had a discussion about it today. And we're looking at potentially hoping to get back to work safely sooner than later, just because the sooner we start, the more likely if we come across anything, maybe a bump or something, that we can deal with it. But that's not in stone. So we could say that now, but it could also be nope, we're not starting until next year, January, whatever. Yeah. But we are hoping to start sooner than later, just because we know the fans are really excited and we were excited to shoot it for you. So season 3, and now with the nomination, we're even more excited to create great content for you guys. So who knows?
All right, Patrick, are you ready to play Rapid Fire?
Oh God, okay.
Okay, stupidest headline you've had to print or write about?
Oh God, that's hard. I think, oh man, I mean, I loved working at People, but sometimes it would just be some celebrity that I'd never heard of, walked the red carpet and accidentally said hello to someone they had a feud with 20 years ago. It's those kind of ones that you read those headlines back and you're like, I don't even know who those names are. And then of course it'd be the number one story. So, I mean, I don't hate that I had to write it, but I personally am just what?
Okay. Biggest interview flub that you've had, and you've done a lot of red carpet interviews.
Oh man. I think it's maybe not a flub in the sense that I called someone the wrong name. Luckily I haven't had that kind of situation come up, but it's funny when somebody makes you starstruck that you're not anticipating, because I've been fortunate enough in this job to interview fantastic people like Harvey. But you're normally prepared for it. And it's always the situations where someone arrives on the red carpet and you're I was not expecting this, or especially if I'm doing a live red carpet, they're telling you who's coming up next. So you're mentally preparing this. And I did it one time, and we knew Will Smith was coming, but he wasn't supposed to come until later. And then all of a sudden they were oh, and he's right here. And live on camera, you see my face just being thinking it's going to be this other actor coming up. And then all of a sudden I turn and it's Will. And I'm just
Oh God, that would be dangerous because you know me, I'm so politically incorrect, whatever. I'd be girl, what was that talk about? What's going on? Patrick, a show you are most embarrassed to tell people you're watching during quarantine?
Oh man, well, I mean, I kind of already brought it up, but Floor is Lava, man. Yeah. I love me some people just attempting to fall. That it's been all shows like that. That and Holy Moly on ABC, which is basically like Wipeout.
Oh, the golf thing?
Yeah. Wipeout meets golf. Probably those shows. But I love them. I love them. It's in between all my true crime docuseries and like Succession. I'm watching that.
Yes. Okay, you have to, who are you casting in a movie? Meryl Streep, Jessica Lange, or Ellen Burstyn?
Oh. I have to do it because I didn't give her enough credit back in, like I used to not give her enough credit. So I'm going to say Meryl, because I think I came to know Meryl as Meryl Streep. And again, this kind of gets back to what we were talking about like knowing someone. And so I was just always like, it's always Meryl Streep. Like Meryl Streep is always just being Meryl Streep. But it was because I got to know her in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and she kind of was doing all the same kind of character. And then I got to see her older work. And then I got to see her do like Mamma Mia and be like funny and silly. And now she does that a lot more. And so I have to give it to her because I totally underestimated her, only having seen a handful of her projects when I was younger. So I'm giving it.
And then she did Into the Woods. Anyway, Patrick, tell people where they can find you and follow you.
Sure. AV Club, please come to us for any sort of entertainment news and criticism. There's so many places now that unfortunately are getting rid of their critics. I saw that happen at People, and I love People, and it's not a diss on them, but they went from having critics of every single like major genre of entertainment when I started to only having really one critic that talks about everything now. And we have been a home for critics, and so if you're looking for a critical voice, we love everything, so none of it is coming from a place of hate or like we try to like emphasize what we love, but if you want a review of an album or a review of a TV show or a movie, podcast, book, all of it, come to avclub.com, and then you can find me across the board on social at Patrick Gomez LA, as in Los Angeles, so I can never move.
All right, gentlemen, this has been so fun. I couldn't think of like a sexier group of Latinx boys, to spend the evening with. There's a sitcom between the three of us, like I really think there is. Harvey, one thing that you want to tell your What We Do in the Shadows fans?
I should say thank you so much for the support. You guys are amazing. I'm always blown away of how much you guys love the show in detail, and Comic-Cons like last year. We weren't able to do it in person this year, but we gave you guys a virtual one.
It was so fun.
And to keep, tuning in and watching, and tell your friends, because we're always someone's new show, so always tell your friends about the show. If you love it, tell a friend. And if you don't, keep your mouth shut.
I love it so much. Well, that's all, folks. It's been a grab bag of fun. Of course, it is every weekend on The Rocks. Give us a like, a subscribe, a share, send nudes. Head to ontherocksradioshow.com for all this fun for free. Next week, we are celebrating guilty pleasures from cable TV. We have Dr. Robin Zazio from the new season of Hoarders. I'm obsessed. We also have Orlando Soria from HGTV's Build Me Up Home Improvement Show. And hopefully we'll be back in the studio soon. The studio has had a whole redecorate, remodel. It looks like the set from the Enterprise, Star Trek. I cannot wait. So until next time, stay healthy, stay tipsy, and stay sexy.
This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at ontherocksradioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.